Has Sir Keir Starmer just sold Britain to the Indians without a single shot being fired? The Prime Minister announced a bumper new trade deal today.
Well, this is a historic day for the United Kingdom and for India, because this is the biggest trade deal that we, the UK, have done since we left the EU, and it's the most ambitious trade deal that India has ever done. And this will be measured in billions of pounds into our economy and jobs across the whole of the United Kingdom. So it is a really important, significant day.
The Prime Minister said that it is fantastic news for British business, British workers and British shoppers, and then the whole thing seemed to unravel. The Indian government released a statement, hailing it as a massive win when it came to helping Indians move to Britain. It's emerged that Indian workers who move to Britain and British workers going to India will pay no national insurance for the first 3 years. Starmer and Reeves raised national insurance for Brits. Well, what could this mean? A huge influx of Indian workers into Britain. Employers can pay them less, so fewer jobs for British workers and lower wages for British workers. Labour says this doesn't change the immigration rules. The Indian government says it does. Indian yogis, musicians and chefs will be able to apply for UK skilled worker visas. Before the trade deal, they had no route into the UK job market. The Prime Minister was pressed on this issue today.
Always give and take in these things. Where did you land on the number of visas that you're going to grant to Indian nationals? Will it affect net migration?
Look, there were tough negotiations on both sides, as you would expect, but because we were serious and pragmatic...
Just hang on a minute, because he's actually still going and he still hasn't mentioned the word visa.
And providing the leadership to our negotiating teams, we were able to resolve the difficulties that have held this up for the best part of 8 years.
Can't answer it, can he? Can't answer the question about visas. Why not, Prime Minister? Why can't you just tell us? The UK government claimed the agreement would add £4.8 billion to the UK economy and 2.2 billion quid in wages a year by 2040. This appears to have been disproved. It's claimed by one Tory MP that it will actually add around 0.1% to GDP and that the impact on GDP per capita will be non-existent. In fact, I can actually see a future where it costs us money. In 2020, more Indians overstayed their visa than any other nationality, 20,706 of them. In 2025, a report showed that 3,561 individuals of Indian nationality were claiming benefits in the UK. That's the fifth highest, I believe, of any nationality. British workers are being taxed more than ever before. Our Prime Minister has just allowed Indian workers to come to Britain and pay no national insurance tax here, and British taxpayers will pay for those who might end up on benefits.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GBNews discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GBNews to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Well, I'm joined now by the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary, Andrew Griffiths. Now, Andrew, thank you very, very much. I'm going to quote to you something that Mike Tapp, the Labour MP, has had to say. He actually is of the view that there is, quotes, no negative spin to this whatsoever. He says that basically this is not going to increase immigration from India and that you guys had 8 years to try and do a trade deal and you didn't do it. I'll just say, he says this is a standard tax agreement we already have with 50 other countries. Is he right about that?
No, he's wrong about that, just as the Prime Minister, I'm afraid, is wrong about so very much, particularly when it comes to the economy, where he's done great damage. Now, look, just to unpack this a bit, Patrick, of course, we support free trade. This is a wonderful country. The world wants to buy what British firms make and the services that we offer, which is why we started, as a post-Brexit benefit, the ability to form deals like this. But let me be also clear with your viewers, this is not a deal we would have done. The compromise that this government has eaten, and the truth is in the description on the Indian side of this deal, that it will make it easier for Indians to come here, and in particular it will give them a great leg up versus British workers. At the time, the government's been pushing up national insurance, the big Labour jobs tax, 25 billion extra cost on British firms. They're cutting the very same tax on Indian workers employed by Indian firms coming over here. So if you think about a business like Jaguar up in Solihull, a great business, it'll be cheaper for them to transfer workers from India than it will to give British workers local jobs.
Not a lot of sympathy for Jaguar.
Lots of good things. It is a Brexit
that was about trans aliens, but they also say, Mike Tapp also says, it doesn't apply to Indian nationals applying for UK jobs. It doesn't grant access to UK benefits, and it doesn't change immigration rules. So there appears to be two very different readings of this trade deal, Mr. Griffith.
Well, some of those points you just said are more accurate than the previous ones, and it does actually open up a little bit the visa rules that Indians can apply for. It doesn't affect those that are applying for British jobs. That's quite correct. But look, let's big picture. We are taking no lessons at all from Labour. Yes, this deal has some good components. It is a Brexit benefit from a Labour Party that voted 48 times to overturn Brexit. If they'd got their way, there would be no way that British firms could get better access to Indian markets, one of the fastest growing economies in the world, growing much faster than the European Union, where they are gearing up later this month with their Surrender Summit on the 19th of May to give back so many of the powers that we were able to obtain through Brexit.
Keir Starmer will no doubt be making the point that for British workers looking to go to India for about 3 years, they also don't pay any equivalent of national insurance over there. So they say this is good, it works both ways. So what's the problem?
Well, there's a vanishingly small number. Unlike some of the other deals like in Canada or Korea, there's a vanishingly small number of British workers that go to India. So it's just not symmetrical, Patrick. The truth is, and you can see this in the fact that the UK government didn't talk about this aspect of the deal at all. Not in their press release, not in Parliament. In India, they hailed this as a great win. Once again, when Labour negotiates, Britain is the country that loses.
Yeah, the reason we actually found out so quickly about some of these points was because of the press release the Indian government put out. So there we go. Thank you very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. All the very best. I'll see you soon. Andrew Griffith there, the Shadow Business and Trade Secretary. Right, let's find out what my panel make of this. We, of course, have Esther Kraku, don't we, the political commentator and columnist. We've got Jonathan Liss, the journalist, and Emily Sheffield as well, the former editor of the London Evening Standard. Thank you very much. I'll start with you on this, Esther. I mean, the optics of it, regardless of what maybe the detail is, the way that this has been explained, or not explained, has allowed people to say it looks as though you're hiking tax for British workers, and you are but making Indian workers pay no tax, i.e. putting Brits at the back of the queue.
Yes, the comms on this has been terrible, but I think that we've seen a gaping hole where competent comms is supposed to be coming out of Downing Street. Now, the explanation should be that we have this kind of deal with other countries, like South Korea, for example, where if South Korean companies send their workers to relocate temporarily to the UK as you get transferred for jobs, they don't have to pay national insurance contributions in the UK because they're still paying those obligations in South Korea. The reason why people are upset about this is because, one, we don't actually know how this would materialise in real life, but also Indian nationals have a reputation of overstaying their visas quite badly in this country. So they don't actually have a lot of good faith amongst the British population of actually being able to honour their visa obligations and then go back. And on the point of sort of the yogis and the chefs and these kind of special skill visas, apparently it's been capped at 1,800 a year. However, again, we don't actually know if that's going to materialise.
Yeah, I mean, this is
if you're going to say the civil service, sorry, we actually accidentally let in 1 million yoga teachers.
Yeah, and with respect, with absolute respect, I was on Just Eat earlier just to see how within like a 2-mile radius of where I'm sitting now, how many Indian restaurants there are. And there's like 150, right? It's insane. We don't need any more skilled Indian chefs, do we?
Probably not. I think there's some good things we should talk about this deal, is that it is lowering tariffs on our cars going to India. So I know we can focus on the immigration part, but I do think we should focus on this is going to be good for industry in Britain. And that's talking about industry jobs that we care about. And a lot of those industry jobs are across in the Midlands and up in the north. So I think, yes, that there is a sort of small problem here, but I think it's a comms one more than anything.
Well, yes.
And actually, Indian immigration here to this country has been falling. So it actually only 2 years ago, it was 156,000 Indians got work visas here. No, I'm not saying it's good, but it fell in 2024 to 81,000 because one of the key things we reduced was that if you came in to work for our health service, you weren't allowed to automatically bring your dependents anymore.
But that doesn't include students.
And the dependents were actually making up more, obviously, than the skilled workers. Now, that is a problem because those dependents are then going into our schools, they're using our National Health Service, and there were certain rules that you couldn't then go and sit on benefits. So I do think it's easy to sort of focus on the uncomfortable narrative here, and we should, because there's clearly going to be some slip-throughs. But I do think for the Brit, I would like people to focus also this has been a good thing in some ways.
Let's make Jonathan List squirm here and enjoy and bask and bathe in a Brexit dividend.
Well, look, Patrick, I accepted that we left the European Union because we did leave the European Union. Obviously, once you leave the European Union, then you have to do the things that allows you to do. I wrote a report about Brexit benefits, quote-unquote, trade deals. Yeah. And along with everyone else who wrote reports on this, we realised and calculated that any benefit from this deal, and Nick Timothy might well be right, by the way, that it will add an infinitesimally small amount to our GDP, which is vastly outweighed by the hit GDP of Brexit. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we should just sort of, sit on our knees and not do anything for the rest of our lives. Obviously, we have to make the best of a bad job, which Brexit was. Having so with that, a deal with India, which people, I'll be completely honest, people said would be very, very difficult, nigh on impossible, because India is such a protectionist country. I'm impressed the government has managed to get that deal, which the Conservatives did not manage to do, and also reduce the vast tariffs that India has traditionally placed on our industries. The Scotch whisky industry has petitioned for years and years because it's very popular in India and it's subject to enormous tariffs. Those are now being slashed. Luxury cars, Zemley said to India, we need a car industry, Patrick, as you will admit freely yourself. And this is very, very good news. This whole bogus argument that Kenny Badenoch is confecting is just complete nonsense.
Sorry to cut across you, but we do have some breaking news, and there is a relevance potentially in light of what we've just been speaking about there. According to Reuters some time ago, India attacked Pakistan in 3 locations with missiles. Pakistan military spokesman tells Pakistan apparently will respond to attacks by India, and Pakistan's military spokesperson has basically said that they will do that. So there we go. I'll just read that again because, sorry, it was a little bit garbled, that really. But according to Reuters, some time ago, India attacked Pakistan in 3 locations with missiles. It looks as though, from what I can tell by this anyway, that Pakistan is saying that they're going to respond. Just in light of this, I can't help but wonder whether or not now it looks as though the Prime Minister has taken India's side in all of this, and that might have some ramifications on
Well,
the streets.
I think the main sort of driver behind getting this deal over the line is Trump's tariffs, and that's kind of pushed countries to be hasty to try and secure free trade deals. I mean, this is only India's 16th, and the 15 previous free trade deals they've signed have been actually not as ambitious as this one. So there is a lot to be said about that. That being said, there are questions around, of course, the numbers, people overstaying their visas, the ability to track them.
But there's also going to be some questions around steel and cement.
Well, I mean,
but
those questions are around China,
because
not India.
It's not just around China. It's about whether we apply a carbon tax. And this country, at this moment,
just to
I
do actually seriously think this is quite a significant development.
Look, it's massive. Look, these are two nuclear-armed countries, and they have a history. They have a history of fighting.
I think.
Sorry, can we just go? Sorry, just because
they have a history of fighting several wars since independence, and it's obviously incredibly dangerous whenever they do. Not just because of the standard risks to life, but because these are both nuclear-armed countries, and so
also
obviously
there's a huge diaspora of population in this country.
Absolutely,
as well.
but obviously the UK government is not going to be taking sides, rightly so. But I would strongly expect the UK government to be urging de-escalation, as everyone should be, because this is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, I must say I am quite concerned. Again, there's this breaking news that we are bringing you that Pakistan says that India has attacked them at 3 locations with missiles. My big concern, as always, when we see a foreign conflict, well, primarily is what does that mean for us here in Britain? And I can't help but wonder whether or not sectarian violence on the streets of Britain is just around the corner.
Well, there's no history of that.
No, there is. There's very little.
Not when India, not because of India and Pakistan fighting, though.
No, well, it actually,
it was members of the Indian community who happen to be Hindus in Leicester versus members of the Pakistani community.
Yes, it wasn't triggered by military conflict
which
in India.
makes my concern that something like this might lead to that even more significant. I would argue.